people that we work with, too, on a regular basis. You do terrific work. Protect the American people, and I'm proud to stand with you, behind you. But we know too well violent crime is up in many cases in our country. Last week, our department's annual National Crime Victimization Survey, which is different from the FBI numbers, but they come out similar, it shows that the rate of Americans victimized by violent crime is up by more than 13%. Some have suggested this is a blip. It's not a real increase in crime. I think that survey that just came out last week is further confirmation that we are indeed seeing a surge in violent crime. Murder is up, according to the FBI numbers, 20% in the last 2 years. This is the largest increases we've seen since the 60s. And it's just not acceptable. Over the last 2 years in this city, this city has experienced violence like we haven't seen in a quarter of a century. The violent crime rate is up by 1/3. Rape is up by 22%. Murder is up by half, 50%. Baltimore has a higher murder rate and a higher violent crime rate than Chicago, with less than a quarter of the population of Chicago. Strong and motivated policing is a key to dealing with the crime rate in most cities, in every city really. 85% of our law enforcement officers in a jurisdiction are state and local officials, and maintaining their morale, maintaining support for them, and training and resources are critical to crime. And we've got to understand that this recent news article that Deputy Rosenstein was quoted in the last few days in the Baltimore Sun really touched on the challenges that we face. I think Rod was exactly right in his analysis. And we've got to revitalize and support our police, work together with our federal and officers, and move forward in a way that can actually reduce crime. That should be our goal. Not how many people go to jail, not how much money we spend, but are we reducing crime, making neighborhoods peaceful, safe, and prosperous? So we embrace that agenda, and we're working to carry it out aggressively. This year alone, the department has secured convictions against more than 1,000 gang members and targeted MS-13. With more than 10,000 members across 40 states, MS-13 is one of the most dangerous gangs in America. And make no mistake, it's a transnational criminal organization. It's based in El Salvador. I was there a few months ago, and it is the most violent gang in America today. The people of this community, you've seen it firsthand. In January, a 15-year-old girl, 15 years old, from near here in Gaithersburg, was stabbed 13 times with knives and a wooden stake by MS-13 members. Her killers filmed the murder so they could show their leaders back in El Salvador what they did. First, our goal with the Department of Homeland Security in partnership is to end the illegality rampant in the immigration system that nurtures much of this crime. As Attorney General, I've ordered our prosecutors to renew their focus on immigration offenses, specifically where those criminals have a gang nexus, a cartel nexus, a violent crime nexus. We've sent additional prosecutorial resources to the southwest border, created border security coordinators in each of our 94 U.S. attorneys' offices to enforce immigration laws, with a special emphasis on criminals like MS-13 that have a nexus to our southern border. I've designated MS-13 as a priority for our OCDF task forces. These task forces bring together a broad coalition of federal law enforcement, DEA, FBI, ATF, CSI, ICE, Border Patrol, Coast Guard, Secret Service, IRS. That's how we work together today. And I want to thank Secretary Nielsen and the Department of Homeland Security personnel for the contributions, the invaluable contributions they make. So these are important steps. We've already delivered results. Together with our partners in Central America, we filed criminal charges against more than 4,000 MS-13 members and seized many firearms, vehicles, and assets. But we must recognize that traditional gangs like MS-13 have taken advantage of our porous borders and previously lax immigration enforcement. That's just a fact. If we accept lawlessness, then we encourage lawlessness. When people break our laws without consequences, we shouldn't be surprised when they continue to break our laws. We can establish a new system where people respect our laws. In recent years, our immigration system has been overwhelmed. The caseload has tripled since fiscal year 2009 and doubled since 2012. As the backlog of cases grew out of control, the previous administration in the immigration area closed nearly 200,000 pending immigration court cases, just closed them without a final decision in just 5 years, more than were closed in the previous 22 years. By closing them, basically they have legalized the person who was coming to court because they were illegally in the country. But under President Trump, we've already taken steps to bring down that backlog. We're completing, not closing, immigration cases. Under the Trump administration, our immigration judges completed 20,000 more cases last fiscal year than the previous one. We've hired 50 immigration judges since January, and we plan to hire another 60 in the next 6 months. Last week, I issued a memo to our Executive Office for Immigration Review, which makes clear that cases are to be resolved, either with removal order or a grant of relief to the petitioner. Appeals that are frivolous ought to be resolved quickly, and fraud ought to be documented and prosecuted. And finally, we will implement objective performance measures to ensure our judges are working fairly and efficiently. The American people, as well as those who come here and disrespect our laws, can be certain about this. We are enforcing the laws again as they were written. Since President Trump took office, border crossings are now at their lowest level in 45 years. This is a big achievement. A lot of it just simply from the clarity of his leadership and expressions. But that number can be zero. We can bring it down further. We can end illegality in America. It is not impossible. It's also, we got to ask Congress for some help too. I know we have a few things we'd like Congress to consider, and we'll be asking them to do so. And we can't wait longer. As yesterday's New York events showed in the starkest terms, the failures of our immigration system are also a national security issue. Since 9/11, the Department of Justice has prosecuted more than 500 people for terrorism-related offenses. And preliminary figures suggest that nearly 75% of those defendants were foreign-born. The President is exactly right to call attention to these issues and to how they affect our security. In just the last 2 months, we've seen 2 terrorist attacks in New York City, carried out by men who were here as a result of failed immigration policies. How did it happen? An individual won the lottery in Bangladesh. He came here. He then, through the chain migration program, and she brought her son 20 years later, attempted to blow up the subway in New York. So this is the system that's operating today. Between 2005 and 9 people under this migration policy, and each of those people may be able to sponsor further relatives as well. Common policy. So the President has proposed ending change migration, switching to a merit-based system like they have in Canada, welcoming the best and brightest, and turning away the terrorists, gang members, and criminals. We should give priority to those who align, such as those who speak English already and are highly skilled, not someone at random or who happens to be somebody's relative. Factors that indicate the applicant's likelihood of assimilation and success in the United States. Immigration is not hopeless. It can be done. Having a national legal immigration system that serves the national interest, we, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, are partners in this effort. We are making progress, and we will. First time, we have a president who is committed to this goal and talks about it boldly. If we follow the policies laid out by, I believe, the immigration system that's lawful and that the American people have asked for, one that serves our national interest. It's great to be with you. Congratulations on your appointment, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you. I'll get that out of your way.
Oh, you're fine. Good morning. So you have to bear with me with a cold. Stop and have a sip of water in the meantime. I just wanted to thank Attorney General Sessions. Thank you for the invite. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting us. I've got many DHS folks here, and I can't thank you enough for everything you do, so thank you. We were fortunate yesterday. I just want to say we were fortunate yesterday that there were no fatalities. This terrorist was clearly planning to kill Americans. That was his intent. Of different circumstances, we were lucky that no lives were taken, although 3 people were injured. I spoke with the New York mayor yesterday. And we work in support of state and local authorities, and we're always on standby to provide any additional information to help in investigations, help in training. While we're not aware of any specific credible threats today, we are taking additional security precautions and assessing what other security enhancements is concerned that more must be done to keep our nation safe, and we intend to do just that. As a result, the administration is from General mentioned, including intensifying our vetting of U.S.-bound travelers. We've talked a lot about that in the last few months. Targeted travel restrictions on high-risk countries. While we were also working to stop terrorists from radicalizing and recruiting within our borders. Working with our private sector partners to fight terror propaganda online, and making sure that we have early warning tools in place to the administration is planning to modify our immigration system to end misguided and outdated visa systems, such as the extended Instead, we do need to focus on merit-based system that the President has recommended, and as we've seen in Canada and Australia, that would better from the past 2 attacks in New York, that they will fail. Our people are resilient. Americans will not be in our state and local law enforcement and federal officials. So let's talk a little bit about MS-13, which is why we're here today. Because Decades of failed immigration policies have encouraged law enforcement officials to look the other way, and these have had real consequences to our people is the resurgence of MS-13 in our country. The brutality of MS-13 is unmatched. There are so many very unfortunate you just won. Only 10 miles from our nation's capital, gang members earlier this year ambushed, choked, and stabbed a victim more than him in a national park where families bring their children to play. We cannot stand for this type of violence in our communities. These are orders and our failed immigration policies. Under President, this administration has taken action to change that, and we thank him for his Secret Service, CBP, and all of our DHS friends here. This year, ICE arrested 796 MS-13 more than last year. 39 of those were arrested in a 6-day period as part of Operation Matador in the New York Metro. Almost one-third of MS-13 gang members arrested in that operation crossed the border as unaccompanied minors. 3 of those allows minors who need protection because of abuse, abandonment, or neglect to immediately apply for lawful permanent resident status. A chance at LPR status, the privilege of legally living in the United States. In return for our generosity, unfortunately, of one of the world's most violent street gangs. MS-13 is a threat to our homeland security, and we've made it our mission to stop them. And we speak to an integral part of this whole system that we are putting in place to protect our citizens. We're doing that by not only rigorously but also orders. From the beginning of this administration through the end of the fiscal year, ICE made 110,500% last year. During this time frame, ICE removals also increased by 37%. In support of the President's executive by hiring ICE officers. To put this in perspective, currently there are nearly 1 million aliens with final orders of removal. 1,000 officers. This massive hiring action will give us more resources to uphold the rule of law. But we cannot simply arrest our way out of this public safety. That will continue on our immigration loophole and bureaucratic bloat. I'd like to thank the AG for everything he's doing to help us with immigration judgment, all of the department. Immigration courts are backlogged by more than 600,000 cases. Together, we will reduce this backlog and ensure that cases are added. Despite the lowest number of border crossing in decades, thousands of people are still attempting to illegally cross the border every day. During the months of this administration, apprehensions of unaccompanied alien minors have increased quite alarmingly over the past 4 months. Names, mostly with dubious allegations. We must look towards addressing fraud and loopholes that exist in our asylum system today. Affirmative asylum cases, with U.S. citizenship and services, and an additional 250,000 cases of illegal immigration, make it difficult to remove illegal aliens in this manner. To put it in perspective, on average, it takes an immigration case. That's nearly 2 years. Many illegal aliens and visa violators must be released while they are awaiting their hearing. And never appear before a judge. If we're going to stop MS-13 and the flow of illegal immigrants into this country, we need legislation addressing the president's immigration priorities. Our first priority is to secure our southwest border. I'm headed to Texas. The challenge we face, mayor, the governor, and others throughout Texas. I'll be meeting with officials who are confronting directly with frontline to once again hear what tools and resources they believe they need to be successful in securing our nation. Not only are they on what they can do. I'll also be traveling to the border to get an update on our border projects, specifically the border wall we are going to build to fully fund investment in the protection of our country. We should all be clear on that. We must stem the tide of illegal border crossings, and a wall to remove illegal as promptly as possible. We're asking Congress to close the loopholes that unaccompanied alien minors and illegal alien relatives expand our backlog. DHS intends to hire 1 additional ICE attorneys, and we fully support the Department of Justice hiring 3 immigrants. Not stand cancer spreads. MS-13 gang members are raping, killing, and torturing Americans. They are selling drugs and Attorney General Sessions and I have a message for the 10,000 MS-13 members in our country today. Escape justice. We will bring all the power of the United States government to bear. We will not rest until we bring you to justice. Together with local law enforcement officials, we are making America safe again. And I thank you for your today.
Hey.
Could you address what specific steps your department is taking to address last month who are maybe here legally but are influenced or by ISIS?
That's a good question. More people who've entered the country from terrorist-based countries where terrorism exists, and because of the challenge that they face. So the previous administration proposed over 100,000 new from the ability of the FBI to monitor them. There's a myth out there that we just have this power, this unlimited. Often their efforts have stopped someone before a problem occurred, before an attack occurred, but it's just stop all attacks. So I think it's a good question you've raised, and we need to make sure that we are putting a minimum stress on the Bureau, or reducing the stress by virtue of vetting people carefully before they're admitted to the country. What's that? I voted absentee, yes, and I value the sanctity of the ballot, and I would say the people of Alabama are good and decent and wonderful people. I've been proud to serve for 20 years in the Senate, and they'll make the right decision, I'm sure.
John Brixey from the Baltimore Sun. The Baltimore Police Department has requested that the FBI take over the investigation of the killing of a Baltimore police detective last month. Is that an appropriate step, and when can Baltimore expect an answer?
we are always willing to cooperate. We'll be considering that request, and we'll probably be able to act on it. It'll be their initial decision. And I would say really crime in Baltimore in the last few years, in which quoted Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein at some length, and it really raised issues that you're facing. The crime increased here at the rate that it has. We've got to be very careful when we have a problem in a police department that we target the people who and the quality and the integrity of the entire department. And bad things start happening, and you can trace the surge to the reactions that occurred afterwards. And I am so hopeful that we can learn from that mistake and in the future do a better job of in our cities.
The Baltimore Police Commissioner Kevin Davis says that the ICE raids in some Baltimore communities are hurting police efforts to reduce crime. What do you say to that?
Well, they've declared it so. We're reviewing things, the details of each city. I see no justification whatsoever. Any city, any jurisdiction, any state to take the view someone who enters a legally and then commits some other crime should be protected from the law, be deported. And I feel very strong about that. I would urge our city officials and county officials and sheriffs to review any such completely with our federal ICE officers, as they have the lawful duty to remove people who are illegally here, and particularly those who commit.
About President Trump's outside counsel asking for a special counsel.
Hold on, Jake. Yeah. Get to you in a second. Hi, Dominique Benesi from W. That you wanted to get rid of the chain visa program, as you were referring to, and the diversity program system. That program, you're asking merit-based. What do you mean by that? And
well, they don't have to. What Canada does, I met with their people years ago. They're very happy with their system, and they're given points in an objective way. They do get more points if they are in French or English. They give more points based on their education. They give more points if they have certain skills Canada needs at that time. And they even get more points if they're younger, because they'll work more, maybe pay more taxes before in the United States.
Attorney General Sessions, we've got time for just a couple more. I want to make sure we have questions for the Secretary, so we're not. Yeah. The unaccompanied minors. In January, the department said that 60% of those coming through should not be. Going to parents who are here illegally. Has that changed or not yet? Because the numbers are still very high.
Yes, as I mentioned, the numbers have started to go up. Different things. We've got a family reunification issue. When they come into this country, it's a combination of, as you know, HHS ends up housing them in the interim while we look for a way within the United States to reunify them with their parents. This is a difficult process. We also worry many of these children, unfortunately, do not have family within this country or close family. These are exactly the minors that perhaps supervision or family around them. Gangs also threaten any family that is here. So as we were talking about the MS-13 today, we limit the number, limit the dangerous journey, and also limit the ability of the gangs to go ahead and recruit them.
Yes, Attorney General Sessions.
You began your remarks by talking about the murder rate and the skyrocketing murder rate in the city, and yet more
Well, we know him region here is responsible for quite. They've been growing rapidly. They were knocked down in 2005 or 6 pretty significantly, but they've come back again. Usually, some of that is from new entrants from El Salvador. Some of it's people, encouraged to join the gangs locally. And so I don't know that the city itself has a high MS-13 murder rate. So you're probably right about inside the city itself. But this region, Northern Virginia, Islip, New York, Houston, Los Angeles, the centerpieces are the most MS-13 violence, and they are the most violent gang in America, I'm sure, without doubt.
All right, we'll do last question in Orange Jacket.
Last month you said that you had no reason to doubt the accusers of Judge Roy Moore. Wondering today on today's election day if you stand by those comments.
Well, I answered the question as I knew it at the time.
All right, thank you. Jake, come up for a second separately. We'll do that.
All right, guys, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.